Symbiote Spider-Man is a series of comic books that tells stories of what happened to Peter Parker when he had the Venom symbiote in the time frame of 1984. The actual event ended very quickly, so recently Marvel decided to tell more stories of what happened during that period. Things to remember is that Spider-Man doesn't know that the symbiote, aka Venom, is alive. He thinks it's just a really powerful suit. He also doesn't know what Null is. He also has no idea that there are even space aliens. And that's today's story. Null, the King in Black, versus Spider-Man in 1984. Now you might be wondering where you are, and this is the Comicstorian channel, where I take some of your favorite trade paperbacks and single issues, and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then I read them dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. With that out of the way, there's not much more to explain. Null is the god of the symbiotes and the god of the void, and he's trying to conquer Earth. And in 1984, he tried it again. Late one night at Ravencroft Institute for the Criminally Insane, Alistair Smythe is awoken from his sleep as someone tells him that it's time to get up. Alistair looks up to see his father, Spencer, and Alistair asks how. He's dead. Spencer says yes, he is, and they aren't exactly him, just taking on a less intimidating form. Alistair tells him, I don't understand, but Spencer asks, do you remember Lewis Tuttle? He was our previous host. Can't exist in this realm without one. Sadly, he got incinerated. Anyway, that's where you come in. Alistair tells him that he needs a new host, and Spencer tells him, bingo! This facility has quite a lab. Seems the insane criminals are the most popular to experiment on. You can gain access to that. We can make you walk again. Just need to whip up a formula and inject yourself. The details will be provided. After that, you'll just need to introduce it to the clinic's ventilation system. Alistair asks, is that all? And Spencer takes his hand. Yes, that is all. Meanwhile, up on the moon, the Watcher sees the event, stating that this does not bode well. There are times when he despises his ability to see everything, especially when there is nothing that he can do about it. But this is beyond the parameters of his kind. They do not act, they only observe. But despite being able to see everything, a pillar of light appears on him as he is pulled into a spacecraft. The Watcher doesn't resist, thinking to himself that this will prove interesting. Back down on Earth, a little boy walks with his mother as he sees a balloon blowing in the wind. The boy breaks away from his mother to chase it and ends up running in front of a speeding car. But before the boy is struck, the symbiote Spider-Man webs the boy up and pulls him out of harm's way. As the boy is webbed to a pole, he yells, again! And Spider-Man tells him, no. Not again. Just wait for your mother. A few moments later, as the boy is brought down, the mother yells to him to never run away like that again. Who saved him? The boy yells, Daredevil! Spider-Man walks by in his street clothes. Yeah, figures I do something nice and someone else gets the credit. Oh well, at least the world is back to normal. And yeah, Felicia might be annoyed at me, but she'll get over it. A short while later, down at the Bugle, Spider-Man walks in and Jonah tells him, good timing for once, he'll be going with Ned. So Spider-Man asks, okay, Ned, where are we going? Ned says that they're gonna go see Alistair Smythe. Apparently, he wants to talk to Jonah real bad. Spider-Man pauses. Isn't that the Spider Slayer guy? And Ned says the very same. Claims he's developing cybernetic implants that he says can help people who are paralyzed. Spider-Man pauses. Right, a supervillain trying to fix his public image, because that always ends so well. Back up in space, the Watcher is sitting strapped to a machine and a man asks if they know who he is. The Watcher looks up to see a purple and green suit telling him that he is Kang the Conqueror, occasional enemy of the Avengers, time-traveling despot. If he left anything else out, he does apologize. Kang scoffs, telling him that the Watchers are so faultlessly polite. Do you know why you were captured? The Watcher says that he offers no offensive capabilities, so no, not really. Kang says that he may lack offensive capabilities, but he has an abundance of knowledge. That knowledge will be extracted from him with this machine so that they can survey the information at his leisure. The Watcher asks, what possible reason could Kang the Conqueror have for the Watcher's information? And Kang tells him, because this time-traveling despot is enduring to save the universe. Kang turns on his machine and he indirectly gives the Watcher access to the ship's computers. He's absorbing all the information and somehow he is seeing the future. He sees what Kang saw. And this is impossible. It sees him. But before long, the computer begins to overload and Kang's small ship explodes. He now floats around in space as he says, oh, this is just fabulous. Back on Earth, a doctor comes to Alistair's room as he is injecting something, asking what is he doing. The doctor asks if that has been approved, and Alistair says that it is something of his own creation. And at the moment, he has a tank of it pumping into the ventilation system, and it should be throughout Ravenloft Asylum by now. The doctor shouts that he is insane, and Alistair says, in his defense, it is an insane asylum. The doctor falls to his knees as she begins to cough, and Alistair says, and we're off and running. Over with Spider-Man, he's getting ready to enter Ravencroft when his spider sense goes off. Could it be a generalized thing since there are criminals here? Also, is that a solar eclipse? There's no eclipse today. They're not like tornadoes that just happen, so why? Inside, Alistair looks out the window telling him that this is glorious. It's a display of the Shadow Realm. As matter progresses in the future, it ripples back to the past, history rewriting itself, or did you just think that creation ran only one way? When he looks back, he sees the doctor is being taken over by a black mass, and he says, well, it looks like she isn't fully into shape yet. This is so much more convenient than injections anyway. Breathe it in and you'll become one of my slaves. Like my host, Alistair. As the doctor kneels, Alistair laughs, stating that his lord will not be sorry that they gave him this second chance. Meanwhile, at the entrance of the asylum, Spider-Man goes running in calling for Ned, and he sees more of the Alistair shadows waiting for him, one of which is Ned. Spider-Man gets his suit on, and Ned lashes out, hitting him. Okay, that was a little fast. There are several of them. Need to get out of here. But as Spider-Man hits the shadow, they all step back, almost surprised that they were hit. Spider-Man jumps over the shadows, trying to get closer to the source of danger, and the closer that he gets, the more his spider sense begins to go nuts. Right now, the source feels like it's coming from up above. Spider-Man jumps into the elevator shaft, starting to climb until he finds the floor that he wants. When he opens it, he sees Alistair. He yells that he should have known that it was him, but this fake Alistair says, no, not Smythe. I am Mystery. As Alistair's body darkens, it takes the form of the shadows from before, but a more larger, more menacing figure. Spider-Man asks, Mr. E? Not Mystery Man, not Major Mystery, just Mr. E? Where do I even begin with that one? Mr. E begins to walk closer, shouting, you, brother! As he hugs Spider-Man, he punches him off and out the window. He runs over to follow, but he looks out the window to see Mr. E pulling himself up from the wall, grabbing him, asking, why in the world would you do that? We're on the same side! We both serve our God! No! Spider-Man pauses. I'm pretty sure that we didn't come up to any sermons, so... As Spider-Man rips out of Mr. E's grip, they both fall to the ground with Spider-Man attacking again, but this time his arm goes through Mr. E. He tells him that he's sorry, but he won't be caught off guard twice. Why are you doing this? Spider-Man tries to pull his arm out, telling him, well, I was kind of expecting you to be the bad guy and all. And Mr. E headbutts him. We are not the bad guy. We are your kin. We represent the natural order. Our people were there in the beginning. We shall continue to exist to the end. Humanity is nothing but a cosmic blip in the universe. You should know that. Mr. E headbutts Spider-Man again, knocking him to the ground. Cease this game! Stop pretending that you are something that you are not! Spider-Man tries to get up in his daze, telling him, okay, need to focus on hitting him again, but how? Wait, when I hit Shadow Ned, he looked surprised, like he wasn't expecting it. And with Mr. E, he wasn't thinking. I just did. Maybe if I relax, clear my mind, let the spider sense guide me. Mr. E yells at him, are you going to surrender yet? It would be very wise to. But Spider-Man punches him, launching Mr. E and splattering him against the wall. As Mr. E pulls himself out, they grow in size, telling him, we did not know that you could do that, but this game ends now. A voice then calls out that they're right about that, and as Mr. E looks up, a sword comes flying down, stabbing him. The Black Knight flies by yelling, hey, was flying by and thought you could use some help. Spider-Man looks up asking what is he doing here, and the Black Knight tells him, you know, saving the day. It's what we do. The Black Knight flies down telling him, okay, first things first, the eclipse. Is that thing responsible for it? Mr. E yells that creation is moving forward. Uncreation runs backwards. Work it out! And then Mr. E jumps into the shadows to escape, with Spider-Man asking him now what? Black Knight tells him he isn't so sure himself. Hopefully the answer is out there somewhere. But back up in space, Kang floats aimlessly until his ship stops right in front of him. The hatch opens, allowing him in, and a voice says, hey. As Kang looks up, he sees Rocket Raccoon pointing a gun. Welcome aboard the Rack and Ruin 2. I'm the captain and the crew. Name's Rocket. Who the hell are you? Back on Earth, Spider-Man is trying to process everything as he sighs. They really do just let everyone into the Avengers these days, and Black Knight tells him, "Thanks for the vote of confidence." Oh, sorry, didn't realize I was speaking out loud, Black Knight. So let's review. Sun's been eclipsed, we don't know why. We have no idea where Mr. E came from or went to, and we have no idea why he came here. The Black Knight says, the last part I can answer, because Merlin came to me and warned me of this event. Wait, Merlin as in the magician? Did he just appear out of nowhere, Black Knight? And then out of nowhere, Merlin says, yes, that is correct. Spider-Man screams in terror. Oh, so that's what it feels like when your heart skips a beat. Black Knight tells him that things must be dire if Merlin is coming to him outside of his dreams, and Merlin tells him that matters are progressing far too rapidly to wait. He must return to the manse immediately. As for Spider-Man, you must go to the office of, what is the word, the newspaper? The shadow that you call Ned is heading there to dispatch the owner. Apparently being possessed unleashes those sentiments one ordinarily keeps hidden. Spider-Man stops. Holy crap! Ned's gonna kill Jameson! I have to stop him. I do have to stop him, right? And Black Knight chimes in, yes you do, Spider-Man! Later at the Bugle, Jonah yells at Tyson that they're supposed to be the science editor. How can he not know why there's an eclipse? Screw it, you're fired! Robbie asks if he just fired Neil, and Jonah says, yeah, they were useless! You can never trust anyone with the middle name Degrassi. But as Jonah gets ready to go through his editorial meeting, there's a sudden crash as Ned jumps through the window telling Jonah, we need to talk. As Jonah begins to run away, Robbie asks what was that noise? Is something wrong? And Jonah yells back, the answer to both those questions is right behind you, Robbie! Jonah runs into the stairway to escape, stating, I have no idea what happened, but somehow it's Spider-Man's fault! Ned slips out of the shadows, telling him, that is always your excuse. Every crappy thing that happens is always Spider-Man's fault, despite him having saved you countless times. Too bad there is nothing to. But then there's another crash as Spider-Man jumps through the window, tackling Ned, sending the two down the stairway. Jonah stares for a moment and yells, I am gonna bill you for that skylight! Meanwhile, back at the Avengers mansion, Merlin explains to Black Knight, there is a great evil coming, and the only thing that can stop it is the ebony blade. Black Knight tells him, okay, does this great evil have a name? It does. It is called Null. Null is a creature of immense power, and it poses a threat to all of time and space. At the present, he is contained, but one day, that containment will end and he will roam free. It is believed that Null will be vulnerable to the ebony blade. That may well be the key to defeating him. But first, we must increase the magic within the sword to elevate it to a point of being an absolutely lethal weapon against him. The Black Knight slowly holds out the sword for Merlin to take, but stops. Wait, what is my name, Merlin? What are you talking about? You are the Black Knight. No, what is my real name? Merlin pauses for a moment and smiles. Very good. As Merlin disappears, the Black Knight yells, show yourself! And Mr. E appears from the sword telling him, everything that I said was true. All I lied about was whose side I was on. Mr. E pulls the ebony blade from the Black Knight's grasp, turning it around, stabbing it into his chest. Back at the Daily Bugle, Spider-Man and Ned tumble into the printing room as Ned shouts, how are you able to touch me? Spider-Man says it's because of all the clean, limited, fancy footwork. But Ned kicks off him, telling him, there's more to it than that. You're one of us. Can't you feel it? You are our kin. But we're not gonna wait around for you to realize that. As Ned climbs, he jumps onto the printing machine and says, you can easily pass through the machine, however, we must move on. So, bye-bye. As the shadow controlling Ned separates itself from Ned, leaving him on the printing machine to get crushed, Spider-Man webs up Ned's legs just before they get sucked in. As he sits up, Spider-Man asks if he's okay. And Ned says he's fine, but the Avengers Mansion, that thing took over. It's heading to Avengers Mansion. Spider-Man asks him, are you sure? Ned tells him, yeah, it was inside his head. He was also in its head. It's a two-way street. Over at the mansion, the Black Knight tries to pick himself up, but as he falls back to the ground, he looks up. Oh, perfect. Kang the Conqueror stands over him, telling him not to move. And as the Black Knight tells him to shut up, Rocket Raccoon yells, what part of the don't move thing do you not understand? The Black Knight begins to laugh. Oh, God, I'm hallucinating. I was worried for a second that there was a talking raccoon. And then he collapses. Rocket pokes the Black Knight, asking if he's dead. Not very familiar with humans and how they die. Kang says that his sensors indicate no. He's barely hanging on though, and Rocket tells him, we should get him out of here before things get even worse. Outside, Spider-Man webs his way to the mansion when he hears the roaring engines of the Quinjet starting up. As the Wayfarer Quinjet, Tony Stark just announced, takes off, Spider-Man webs onto it. Good! It means that someone is here that can help. Just need to climb aboard and let them know to let me in. Though it's kind of weird that if the Black Knight was ambushed, they'd be leaving. Spider-Man crawls into the cockpit, poking his head, yelling to the pilot, "Hey, hold up, it's... Aw, crap." In the pilot seat, Mr. E says, "Hello, Spider-Man, and goodbye." Mr. E activates the ship's defense barrier, knocking Spider-Man off, but before he has a chance to web onto something, he falls onto the rack and ruin, shouting, "Now what?" As he falls in, Kang asks, "You are Spider-Man, correct?" Not quite as identifiable a costume, but the large arachnid on your chest is a dead giveaway. Without a word, Spider-Man kicks Kang into the wall. Hearing the noise, Rocket yells, "What is going on back there?" Kang fires an energy blast, telling him, "How dare you!" And Spider-Man jumps over it, firing a web shot into Kang's face, punching him. "I'll dare anything!" Kang groans, pulling the web off of his mask. "Right, enough of that." As Spider-Man lunges again, Kang puts up a barrier, stopping him. "For someone who's clever enough to devise his own webbing, you are an idiot, sir." He blasts him away. "You're encountering someone who could stop the mighty Thor in their tracks. Do you believe you have a chance? For God's sake, we're on the same side." Spider-Man lands. "Right, sure we are." "That's right, dummy, we are," Rocket tells him. Spider-Man blinks, staring at Rocket. "Okay, what the absolute heck?" Rocket tells him, "Don't matter. I know Kang's deal. What's yours?" Spider-Man tells him that his name is Spider-Man, and Rocket tells him, "Okay, well, my name is Rocket." "Rocket Raccoon? Like the Beatles song?" And Rocket asks, "What are the Beatles?" But Spider-Man jumps to his feet, asking whose side are they on? And Rocket says, "It's kind of stupid to ask, isn't it?" Kang then says that they're all on the same side, and Spider-Man tells him, "Right, I'm just supposed to believe you guys?" Kang tells him yes, he was trying to save the universe because he lives in it as well. Why else would he be healing him? Kang motions behind him to the tubes in his back. Spider-Man looks over, asking, "Is that the Black Knight? What happened here?" Apparently, the Black Knight has been stabbed, and since his sword is missing, we're assuming that that was the weapon used, presumably by one of these. Kang points to the next tube where a shadow creature is locked up, and Spider-Man asks if that's a shadow minion. He fought one earlier, and it kept saying something about how they were one and the same. No idea what they're talking about. Kang scratches his chin. No, you wouldn't, would you?" Spider-Man asks, "What is that supposed to mean?" "You'll find out in due time, sir." The shadow creature bangs on the table, stating that they will kill him, and Kang says, Yes, I'm quite sure that you believe that. However, what is going to happen is that you are about to be extracted from your host upon my signal, and then blasted off into space, directly into the sun that we are passing." "Oh, I'd like to see you try." And Kang holds up his hand, pointing his finger like a gun, and shoots. A second later, the shadow creature is sucked away and shot into the nearby sun, with Kang stating, "There we go, extracted from the patient." Everyone stares at the tube, with Rocket asking who is the girl, and Spider-Man says that is Captain Marvel. Rocket asks, "Isn't that a Kree guy?" And Spider-Man tells him, "Not anymore." "You doing okay in there, Cap?" Captain Marvel rubs her head as she comes to, and then she sees everyone outside and yells, "Kang!" And Kang rolls his eyes. "Oh, here we go again." Suddenly, Captain Marvel disappears, and Spider-Man asks where she went. Kang states that she's gone infrared. As such, she is intangible. Fortunately, it's nothing that my force field cannot handle. She bounces off the barrier that Kang puts up, and as she falls, Rocket asks, why do humans always greet each other by launching into a fight? Don't any of you guys like shake hands? Captain Marvel looks at Rocket. "Is that a talking raccoon?" And Rocket is getting furious now. "What the hell is a raccoon?" A short while later, Captain Marvel says that she isn't sure what happened. She was taking a nap and that a shadowy thing took her over. She could hear its thoughts, all of these shadow minds, linked. What one knows, all know. Spider-Man asks if they took Black Knight's sword, and Captain Marvel says yes. They're afraid of it. They think that it can destroy their lord and master. Kang says that if that's the case, they need to get it back and use it themselves. Captain Marvel looks back, scoffing. "Right, Kang the Good Samaritan. You want to bring the sword to the side of the angels. Bull! You just want to rule!" Kang says that is true, but please, what would I rule if everyone was dead? As the two bicker, Rocket tells them to shut up. They have bigger problems to worry about, namely, how is the sword going to be destroyed? Spider-Man says easy, throw it into the sun, and Black Knight says that won't do, it can survive a sun. Spider-Man asks, really? Don't you know how hot the sun is? And Black Knight tells him that the sword is no normal blade. Merlin forged it from a star stone. It's as much magic as anything else. Trust me, a star wouldn't do it. Captain Marvel says they don't have to guess where it's going, they're taking it to nowhere. Spider-Man asks, nowhere? Why does it sound like the start of an Abbott and Costello routine? So Rocket spells it out. K-N-O-W, nowhere, I know the place. Kang yells, of course! I should have thought of it immediately. There's a troll in the market that I heard who can destroy it. She wields both metal and magic. She lived in Norheim, though she's relocated to nowhere. Spider-Man asks, why would she go there? And Kang tells him, to get away from her brother. They wanted to kill her. Apparently it was some trollish custom. Who was her brother? And Kang chimes in again. I believe that their name is Ulick. Meanwhile, at nowhere, Ulick did indeed find his sister, Yulcia, though he burst into her workshop just as Mr. E was requesting her services. But before the sword could even be dismantled, Mr. E uses the ebony blade to stab Ulick. While Ulick is down, Mr. E gets ready to deliver the final blow, asking, where do trolls' souls go when they die? Valhalla, Oblivion, and guess who we're about to find out? As the sword is swung, there's a loud clang as Yulcia deflects it with her hammer, stating that no one kills her brother except her. Mr. E swipes her back, stating that he just came to have the blade destroyed, but now she had to make it difficult. You stupid! But before he could finish his sentence, Mr. E is blown away by a psychic blast. As the light fades, the head of security, Cosmo the dog, walks in. Idiot, you okay, Yulcia? Yulcia gets up, stating that she's fine, and a shadowy creature wanted to destroy his sword, and then her brother came crashing in. Wait, oh, peanuts. In another part of the market, Ulick yells to give him the sword, but as he jumps through Mr. E, he says, yeah, I'll get right on that. But with his attention on the troll, Mr. E is kicked in the head by Spider-Man, asking, who's the greater fool, the fool or the fool who follows him? Star Wars quote, you know, since we're in space. Mr. E yells, swinging the ebony blade, but Spider-Man webs it up, telling him, let the sword go! Mr. E struggles to keep hold, but a laser shoots through him as he asks, oh, now what? Rocket continues to shoot. Huh? That's weird. Just need to kick it up a notch. A few more beams pass through Mr. E as he says, yeah, keep firing, you idiot. See if I care. Let's test the energy absorption prowess of the, excellent. Mr. E holds the sword up to take on the incoming blast, and once charged up a bit, deflects the lasers back, narrowly missing Rocket Raccoon. Spider-Man goes back to attacking, but as his hits begin to pass through, Mr. E smacks him in the back, stating, we are adapting! Nothing can hurt us now! But then Captain Marvel flies by, telling everyone, relax, I got this. As her beams hit Mr. E, he stops, asking, what is she doing? She concentrates her hold, stating that she is filling him with ultra-violent light, which is solidifying him. Spidey, Rocket, take him! Spider-Man jumps in, delivering a hard-hitting punch, with Rocket shooting Mr. E's hand, causing him to release his hold. Kang then yells for Spider-Man to get out of the way. I'm going to end this battle. While Kang attacks, Mr. E asks, do you really think that you can thwart the will of our Dark Lord? Your attempts are nothing. Kang tells him that he does not attempt. I succeed. As Mr. E is ripped from Alistair falls to the ground, with Spider-Man running over to check if he's even still alive, asking where did Kang send Mr. E. Kang smiles, stating that they made other arrangements in anticipation of needing somewhere secure to deposit him. Meanwhile, in another part of the galaxy, specifically the Collector's showroom, Mr. E bangs on his containment tube, shouting, let me out! Let me out now! And the Collector tells him, oh no. I may not know where you came from, but the Collector doesn't habitually release his prizes just because they ask him to. Over with Yulcia, she begins to clean up her workshop, stating that it's going to take weeks to clean up. Maybe she should pack up, now that Ulick knows where she is. Just then, Ulick punches through the wall and Yulcia yells, asking, can't you just use the bloody door? It's right there. Would it kill you to do that? Ulick knocks her down, stating, why don't I just kill you and we split the difference? As Ulick raises the ebony blade, he is struck in the face with a blast from Kang, and Rocket charges in, pressing the attack. As Ulick is launched through another wall, Yulcia asks, really? Doors, what is with you people? Ulick begins getting up, asking, can't a troll just kill his sister in peace? And Spider-Man tells him, afraid not, bozo. He swings a few more times, stating not as long as the heroes are here to stop him, and Ulick stands up unfazed, asking, are you serious? But before Ulick can attack, he is blasted away again as Cosmo floats in. Spider-Man asks, did you do that? And did you talk, dog? Cosmo tells him, yes. As Spider-Man throws his arms up, of course the dog talks, because I hitched a ride with a talking raccoon and an Avengers villain, so naturally we're gonna meet a talking dog. While everyone turns their attacks to Ulick, Yulcia runs in yelling to stop hurting him. Ulick gets up, stating that he isn't hurt. I am just getting a second wind. Yulcia then punches him, telling him that he is an idiot. She fled all the way to the middle of nowhere to avoid him, and he still cannot leave her alone. Ulick says that he didn't come for her. He came for the sword. She asks why, and Spider-Man says that he's kind of wondering that himself. And that's when the Watcher towers over everyone, stating, because Ulick was sent to retrieve the sword. Spider-Man looks up, asking, do I want to know? And the Watcher tells him to destroy the being who wants the annihilation of the universe. The one called Null. Meanwhile, back at the Collector's showroom, Mr. E begs for another chance. He can make things right. Please just give him back his full power. Null asks,
"Why should I give it back to you?"
And Mr. E says,
"Because the sword still remains a threat. I can get rid of it forever, Lord." "Believe it or not, I'm in a generous mood. I will restore your power. No longer do you need to inhabit anyone. You are once again whole."
Meanwhile, over in the bar on Nowhere, Spider-Man takes another drink. Okay, run it by me one more time, slowly. The Watcher explains that he required the ebony blade so that it can be used against a godlike being called the Null. This blade, if wielded by the proper hand, could perhaps slay this god-like being. Spider-Man takes another shot. Gotcha! Heck, bring in Shadow Boy. I'll take him on without even breaking a sweat. At that moment, Mr. E bursts from the ceiling.
"I am restored! I am myself! I am now and forever Mr. E!"
Spider-Man pours a third shot. I'm starting to wonder if there's something in this crazy concoction. At least we know Kang didn't vaporize him. Mr. E grabs the sword, telling the Watcher,
"You have a weak grip, one that Mr. E can easily break."
Spider-Man groans, rubbing his face. I hate guys who refer to themselves in the third person. They're nothing but trouble. Even Spider-Man hates the ones who do. Mr. E turns back.
"You do not seem to realize the seriousness of the situation, brother."
Spider-Man yells at him, "Seriousness? I was flown out here by a talking raccoon and Avengers villain into a place where the head of security is a talking dog and a troll brother who is ritualistically hunting his sister. All this while fighting a villain who thinks that we are brothers. Forget seriousness and you!" Spider-Man swings, punching Mr. E out of the bar, and then looks at his fist. Oh, good! I'm able to hit him again. Mr. E gets up.
"You can rejoice all that you wish. It will be the last time, for I shall destroy the galaxy."
Spider-Man jumps out with everyone, telling him, "You can consider us the Guardians of the Galaxy!" And Captain Marvel says, "I'm pretty sure there's already a group called that, Spider-Man." Rocket begins to shoot again, but his bullets begin to pass through, and Mr. E says,
"Sorry, as long as I'm concentrating, nothing can hurt me."
Spider-Man lunges, passing through. Aw, nuts! And Mr. E tells him,
"You don't seem to understand. I cannot be defeated!"
Both Yulcia and Ulik try to attack, but they end up hitting each other with one another's hammers. Spider-Man webs up the sword, stating that maybe they can't hit him, but the sword did something. Maybe they can try that. But while everyone's attacks are doing nothing, Mr. E asks,
"What possible hope could you have, eh?"
The Watcher walks up and Mr. E asks,
"What are you going to do? Observe? How very typical."
The Watcher slowly makes his way forward, standing in front of Mr. E asking, "What am I going to do?" He leans in, almost nose to nose. "Watch me." A powerful energy pulse is then released, blasting Mr. E away, causing him to let go of the sword. Rocket jumps up, grabbing it, slamming it into Mr. E's chest, telling him, "You should see what this sword could do firsthand!" Mr. E sits up, looking at the sword, laughing. Rocket asks, "What's so funny?" Mr. E smacks him away.
"I feel no pain! Now that I am fully powered, not even the ebony blade can stop me! Not that blade and not any of them!"
As Mr. E goes on, the Watcher looks over at Captain Marvel, and Captain quietly says, "I think I get it." Mr. E continues yelling as he raises the sword over Spider-Man, and as he brings it down, Captain Marvel claps her hands together, catching the blade. Mr. E asks,
How are you doing that?"
And Captain Marvel tells him, "You must be confused, so allow me to shed some light." She pulls the sword up, turning it around, stabbing Mr. E in the chest, focusing all of her ultra-violent light and stopping him. As Mr. E begins to break away into pieces, he says that they won't win.
"You can't!"
And Captain Marvel tells him, "Yes, we will." With Mr. E finally destroyed, the Watcher says that their mission has only just begun. They now must go to the future. He must inform his future self that they must fight the battle that he foresaw in Kang's future chronicles. Kang says that he was glad to help, but the Watcher says after they kidnapped him and violently attempted to drain his mind, Kang tells him, "Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time." As the Watcher puts his hand on Captain Marvel's shoulder, nothing happens. Spider-Man whispers to Rocket that he was expecting some kind of Back to the Future special effect. Rocket tells him, "I have no idea what that means." Captain Marvel looks up asking if everything's okay, and the Watcher says that the others of his race are preventing him from time traveling, valuing their credo above even the universe's survival. Fools. Blind fools. Well, so much for that plan. Raccoon, ready your vessel. There is only one thing that we can attend to. We must attend to the Earth's sun at least. A short while later, just outside of the Earth's orbit, Captain Marvel flies out of the ship, stating that whatever this Null is, she hopes that he can feel this. She rockets herself into the orb, blocking out the sun, and Null begins to scream in pain. He says that something dares hurt him, and when he escapes his prison,
Whoever and whatever did it will live to regret it, but not for a very long time.
later on Earth, Spider-Man says, "Look up at the clear sky." Good to see this again. Sorry the whole other plan didn't work though. Watcher says to let them hope that the universe survives. And Spider-Man says it always does, well, usually. The Watcher goes on telling him that the Black Knight is currently headed back to the Avengers Mansion. Both Ned and Alistair are both returned thanks to Cosmo. And while it is not a comfort that he can provide him or his allies, he has wiped their memories to give everyone some peace. Spider-Man asks if he can do that, and the Watcher stares at him, with Spider-Man blinking, asking, "Why was I up here again?" And there you have it, the first battle against Null, which happened back when Spider-Man got the original Spider-Man symbiote suit. Now, just keep in mind, this story is supposed to take place during 1984, when Spider-Man had the suit temporarily. And as you can tell from the storyline here, he didn't know that it was a creature known as Venom. He didn't know what he was dealing with. He just had a suit that made him more powerful. If you want to see more stories like this and you want to see us give you more narrations on your favorite comic books, please consider sticking around to our channel. And also go check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Comicstorian, where you can vote on the next storylines coming out here on the channel. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for your continued support, and I will see you next time right here.